because right now we have more questions.
Exactly.
So we'll wait and see.
And I would say, the procedure of law seeming to come into play here, and this thing has been dragged out probably much longer than a lot of people thought. But we're talking about law, so we're talking to a lawyer now as we go into the KOM News Zoom room. Our good friend Julian Aguon here, and Julian, it seems that the procedure of law, as we were just saying, worked very, very well for you. So congratulations, and the reason we're bringing you on is you actually made a very convincing argument, and the victory was secured, and essentially securing the protection of a habitat of not one, not two, but 23 imperiled Micronesian species. So always good to see you. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Julian.
Thank you so much, Jason. Good morning. Thanks for having me. So basically, we at the firm partnered with the Center for Biological Diversity, and we filed a lawsuit here in the district court against the U.S. Fish and Wildlife. Basically, we got the relief that we were seeking for. We reached a settlement and just filed a joint motion to dismiss yesterday. And essentially now we have the federal agency, Fish and Wildlife, forced to designate critical habitat for the 23 species. We're really proud of it only because, basically when endangered species get the benefit of a critical habitat designation, they're more than twice as likely to recover, than without those protections. So this is just a really great victory for all of our sort of non-human relatives.
How difficult, counselor, was it to make this argument with conviction and everything in order to to prove the case of why these species need to be protected?
Yeah, so basically, to just explain what this is, it's relatively straightforward. This is just a failure of the Secretary of the to basically designate critical habitat designation in time. So we have the relevant federal law is the Endangered Species Act. So to be clear, we sued under the Endangered Species Act, and we said in 2015 when the service designated all of these 23 creatures, and they're 14. They're both plants and animals essentially, not just in Guam, but in the North Marianas as well as some other Micronesian countries. And so what we are basically saying is that the failure to designate critical habitat within the statutory deadline. So federal law sets a deadline for the federal agency to designate the critical habitat, and they failed to do so. So in that way, it's a relatively straightforward. But we're just happy that that basically the Department of Justice, who was representing Fish and Wildlife, agreed, that these are clearly protections that need to be sort of put into place for these imperiled animals
and the range of the species that are now covered under this, it's pretty broad. And real quickly, there's a certain species of bat, the skink, butterfly, snail, and the list goes on and everything like that. So it wasn't like a particular, like a group of fish or a group of winged, creatures and everything like that.
Yeah, it was a whole bunch. It was of course, the plants themselves, but also a range, including our Mariana 8-spot butterfly, which is endemic to here, which is currently in danger because of a massive multi-purpose machine gun range being built by the military. There's so many different species are now, this is just part of a longer process. It's a part of a longer, broader, deeper movement to provide protections for all of these creatures who are so vulnerable right now to overdevelopment, including military development.
Now,
sensitive. Yeah.
Did the different species provide any particular challenges because they're so diverse, or was it basically living creatures are living creatures and they have the rights just as we do as humans?
Well, essentially, Jason, it really boils down to whether or not Fish and Wildlife has actually formally listed a creature as either endangered or threatened, thereby triggering protections under the Endangered Species Act.
Okay.
And Julian, I did want to follow up with what does this mean for current and future developments? Are these particular species in any particular areas that might trigger something that wasn't triggered before, given this new protection that was achieved?
Yeah, so it's somewhat complex, the process, but basically triggers Section 7. So what the simplest way to answer that is it basically is a check on the federal government. Anytime you have critical habitat designation, what you're sort of on the watch for is any proposed federal agency action that might have a deleterious or adverse impact on a species with a critical habitat designation. So now, luckily, whenever we're moving forward after the final rule gets promulgated, we will be in a different sort of legal terrain where federal agencies will have to consult with Fish and Wildlife to determine truly if their proposed action really is going to actually be harmful and have an adverse impact on these species. So it's more about restraining certain federal projects. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So is there any like retroactive kind of,
No. No. And of course, it's one of those things. The law is great and it's a great tool, but as I always say, it's just one tool in a community's toolkit. That's all it is. But, we need so many other types of things, forms of advocacy that need to continue to happen to really, truly protect these plants and animals.
And to be fair, it was nine species of animals which are listed as rare, as well as 14 plants. And so,
Yes.
So Julian, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service is now on the clock, essentially, to take action and provide a sufficient critical habitat by the mid part of 2025.
Yes, that's right.
Okay.
Well, yeah. Thank you both so much for having me on and for just sharing the story.
Yeah. So thank you, and congrats. And behalf of all 9 of the species and all of the plants that are covered and everything, thank you for going to bat for them.
Thank you too. Have a wonderful day.
All right, Julian, thanks so much. Our friend Julian Aguon, he is many things. He is a published author. He is obviously a very successful lawyer, and giving us some of his time. They're now being successful in securing habitat protection. Again, 23 species, 9 of them animals, 14 plants.
right? And not just on Guam, also in the Northern Marianas
Throughout the
and the
Marianas.
region. So definitely a win for all of us.
All right. Okay, so we are getting ready to wrap up the show, but we would be remiss if we neglected to play you some music. So that's what we're going to do right now. We have talked about